Channel Traveling Hotel Makan Piknik Restoran Sri Latifah Alumni.
So there's a wetlands habitat, you've got a temperate rainforest garden, you've got a cactus garden, a Victorian grasslands as well. So they even have snake-necked turtles which are nesting about this time of year. So you do actually see them wandering about. Really big creatures. Haven't had the need to evolve, have they? They're just getting on with it. But if you are there during sundown, you will see the flying foxes as well. So the grey-headed flying fox is endemic only to Australia. Usually they're a migratory species. Their range started from about far north Queensland, but it has expanded all the way down to Victoria, even into towards Adelaide, where they do have a permanent camp there now. And that's because they're becoming very, very individualised in urban areas. Lots of people coming over, planting all of these exotic fruits, and so they feel like, oh, we don't need to go and forage. We'll just stay in the botanical gardens. So much so, by the 1990s, they were damaging all of the foliage in there. So by the early noughties, a group of conservationists from the University of Melbourne decided to relocate them. And how they did this, they would wait for them to leave and go foraging at dusk. By the time they would return at dawn, they would set off some smoke machines and bang their pots and pans to deter them from coming back and camping in the botanical garden. So most of them eventually did move upstream to the Yarra Park, which we can't get up to in this boat, but I'll talk about that later on. And this time of year, their numbers swell up to about 80,000. So if you do go around this park, it is very noisy. They're just squabbling and it smells of guano. So this bridge ahead of us is called the Morell Bridge. This is the fourth oldest bridge here in Melbourne. Originally it was called the Anderson Bridge. That's because there were two blokes that built it. One was called Anderson, and he supplied the concrete. Another was called Monash, who supplied the brains. And unfortunately, Anderson, his concrete company went bust shortly after this bridge opened, so he moved up to New South Wales. But at the time, it was the second bridge of its kind to be built out of reinforced concrete. So it was kind of like a trial and error. Would it hold? And lo and behold, nearly 150 years later, it's still here. But the City of Melbourne did have to close it off to traffic, to motor vehicles, because obviously when it was built and designed, Monash and Anderson didn't know what cars were, so they weren't really a thing. So I believe it was in the 1990s, the City of Melbourne finally closed it off to motor vehicle, and now it's just completely pedestrianised, and it makes up part of the tan, or as some like to say, the hot girl walk, I think. So yeah, the influence of walking down there trying to get a perfect image, strutting along the bridge on their way to the town.
Are we coming back from the same route, or are we going to different route?
Are we going to come back?
Yeah.
I hope so, yeah.
Because I missed there is a MCG, was there?
Yeah. But I'm going to put the microphone down at the halfway point. But if you do have questions, please come up and
No,
talk.
because we were sitting outside, so I could not hear you that well.
Yeah.
You just mentioned have you taken the photograph of MCG? I said, I didn't know that.
Oh, you'll get another opportunity as
Thank
you come
you.
back. Yeah. So our next two landmarks, up on the left here, the Victoria Bid site and Naik Studios, Naik's Plastics. That was one of the sites of the Colton United Brewing Company. They packed up shop in the 1950s and moved further upstream to Abbotsford, and Naik Studios here acquired the land and built those silos there. If anyone's a Paul Kelly fan, you might recognise that sign. It is listed under heritage now, and he used to live on Punt Road Hill off to our right, and he wrote a song called Leaps and Bounds where he's reminiscing, living in this really cold apartment, looking out the window one fine morning, and seeing on top of the sign there was a clock that also told the temperature. It was 11 degrees. So it's called Leaps and Bounds. Really good song, and in the 70s or 80s, he filmed a music video. Him and his band are on top of the silos, just rocking out, and have all of these helicopters circling them, filming them. The bridge that we're coming up to here is called Hoddle Bridge. This was built roughly 100 years after Mr. Bob Hoddle first came to Melbourne. At the time, Melbourne was going through an Art Deco phase. So this is one of many lovely Art Deco bridges. Over Mooney Ponds Creek, there's a few more Art Deco bridges which are really gorgeous to look at. But the significant thing about this is it connects Punt Road, which goes over the bridge, all the way down to Model Street, further down there. And in the 1980s, there was an awful, tragic massacre that occurred down Model Street. It's known as the Model Street Massacre. A man called Julian Knight. I believe he was quite intelligent, and then he went and joined the army. He got discharged from the army. He didn't really like authority, and a few months later, on his way home, he got quite tanked up on beer. Went to his house, took all of his guns out, and just started firing at people down the street. It's awful. So he murdered 7 people, injured about 18, and he is still serving 7 concurrent life sentences today. So this was before the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania, when Australia hadn't tightened up their gun control. You've got Punt Road Hill up there. You probably guessed how it got its name. There used to be a punt service that operated here. So long before a lot of these bridges were built, if you wanted to cross the river, you'd either have to trek all the way down towards Prince's Bridge to cross there, or you would get a punt over here. Now, the interesting thing about this track along here is when we have a high spring tide, strong westerly winds, and a huge dump of rain, that track goes underwater because the river just rises so high. Whereas on our left-hand side, this track doesn't, so this one floats. And as you can see, the black sticks, and then we've got 2 lovely paid actors there demonstrating just how stable it is as they're jogging along. So this one actually rises and lowers with the tide and water level every 6 hours. And this trail makes up part of the Capital City Bike Trail, which is one of many new bike trails that have been trialled here in Melbourne. This one goes on for about 40 kilometres around the city, so if you do have a bit of time, you can hire an e-bike on the city centre. Take this trail, about 95% of it is off-road, so it's segregated from the traffic like this. And this section will take you up to the Yarra Park, which I was talking about earlier, where all of those bats are. And then after you go up through there, you'll come along a disused railway line over the northern suburbs, where you'll then hit another train line which goes into Prince's Park and then onto Mooney Ponds Creek and then down into the Docklands. So up ahead, if we look at the front of the boat and then we turn to about 11 o'clock, we can see 3 red brick turrets up there. That's the Melbourne High School. This was one of the earliest, first established high schools here in Melbourne. It is a boys' school, it's still public, state funded. It's a very select entry though, so either you've got to have a lot of brains or backed up by a lot of dosh. We've been told there's a kid that goes there that gets dropped off in a helicopter most mornings. But yeah, so that's just one of many of the old high schools that are along here in South Yarra, which is quite
Ikuti
an
terus
old
perjalanannya.
suburb.
Wassalamualaikum. Bye bye. Thanks guys udah nonton.